Good afternoon, Virgo. Before the word, before the gesture, before any move is made in any direction, there is the watching. And watching, real watching, the sustained kind, the kind that happens in the quiet after the conversation ends, in the replaying of something you said, that they are still turning over in their hands, like an object they can't quite put down. Watching is never passive. It is the most active thing a person can do while appearing to do nothing. It accumulates detail by detail. The way you hold yourself in a room, the specific way your voice changes when you are saying something you actually mean, the thing you do with your hands, when you're thinking, the pause before you laugh. Small things, things you have never thought to curate because you didn't know anyone was collecting them. But someone has been quietly, carefully, in the particular silence of a person who has learned that speaking too soon disturbs the thing they are trying to understand. And the thing they are trying to understand is you. Let's stay in this for a moment before we go anywhere else, because being watched, truly watched, not surveilled, not evaluated, but studied with the specific attention of someone who finds you genuinely, helplessly interesting, produces a response in us that is rarely simple. There is something in it that we want, deeply want, the human need to be seen, not performed at, not reacted to, not assessed for usefulness or compatibility or social function, but genuinely, carefully, almost reverently seen, is one of the oldest hungers we carry, one of the least spoken and most persistent, and there is something in it that unsettles us, because to be watched without your knowledge is to exist in someone else's interior without having consented to the entry, to have been translated, interpreted, assembled, given a meaning inside another person's mind, without being present for the process, without knowing what version of you has been living in that watching, whether the version they've built resembles who you actually are, or whether it is something else entirely, something constructed from longing more than from observation. That distinction matters. We will come back to it. But first, obsession, that word needs to be handled honestly, because it is one of the most misused words in the vocabulary of desire. We have made it romantic. We have dressed it in red and called it passion. We have confused it with depth, as though the inability to stop thinking about someone is evidence of how worthy they are of being thought about. And sometimes it is, sometimes what looks like obsession from the outside is simply the natural consequence of encountering someone whose frequency matches something so deep in you that the mind cannot let it go, cannot file it away, cannot process it and move on, the way it processes ordinary things, because it does not recognize this as ordinary. That kind of obsession is not about possession. It is about recognition. The mind circling something again and again, not to consume it, but because it cannot yet believe that what it found is real. But there is another kind, and this is the kind that deserves your clear-eyed attention. The obsession that is not about you at all. The kind built not from recognition, but from projection, from the deep, unconscious hunger of someone who has placed onto you everything they need, everything they have lost, everything they believe will complete them, if only they can get close enough. That kind of obsession does not see you. It sees through you to something it is looking for, and being seen through feels from the inside remarkably similar to being seen, until it doesn't. Until the moment the projection is tested against reality, and reality refuses to cooperate, and then the watching turns cold. So here is the question worth sitting inside, gently, without urgency. Is the version of you that has been living in their silence the version you recognize? Because you can feel it sometimes, the weight of being someone's focus, the particular atmospheric pressure of existing inside another person's attention. And within that feeling, if you are quiet enough to read it carefully, there is often a signal that says either this person sees me, or this person has built something in my shape that I am not sure I am. Both are intense. Both are consuming. Both will produce the same surface level sensation of being someone's center of gravity. But one of them is a connection, and the other is a mirror that someone has been talking to while believing it was a window. Now, the move they didn't plan to make. This is the most psychologically interesting part of everything this night has placed before us, because a move that wasn't planned is a move that came from somewhere beneath strategy, beneath the careful calculation of someone who has been watching in silence, who has been managing their desire, containing it, maintaining the position of the observer, precisely because the observer position feels safe. Safe from rejection, safe from the exposure of being known to want something, safe from the specific vulnerability of reaching toward another person and finding that the distance between you does not close the way you imagined. The watcher stays still because stillness is control. And control for someone carrying this much is the last remaining armor. But armor is heavy, and desire, real desire, the kind that has been accumulating in silence, detail by detail, moment by collected moment, grows heavier than the armor eventually. And something gives, not dramatically, not with announcement, but in a single unguarded moment, a message sent before the reasoning caught up, a look held 1 second past the point of deniability, a word that arrived in the conversation from somewhere deeper than the script, the watching becomes moving. And the person who moved is now standing in the exposure they spent all that silence trying to avoid. Attends, because I want to name what that moment is. The unplanned move, what it actually is underneath the narrative of desire and obsession. It is a crack in the performance and cracks in performances, even in the performances of people who have been watching you from a careful distance, are the most honest moments a human being ever produces, because the performance, by definition, is constructed. It is the version of themselves they decided to present, curated, managed, designed to produce a specific impression. But the crack, the unplanned move, the moment desire outran strategy, that is the unedited version, the one that didn't go through approval, the one that came from the place where people are actually made of. And it's possible, as you sit with this, that the unplanned move is the most truthful thing this person has ever shown you. More truthful than anything they said when they had time to think, more revealing than any version of themselves they carefully assembled in your presence. The crack is the person, not the wall. But here, and this is the turn that matters, I want to bring this back to you, because we have been talking about them. They're watching their obsession, their unplanned move, and there is a way of receiving all of this that places you entirely in the passive position. The object of the watching, the target of the desire, the destination of the move, without ever examining what is happening on your side of the silence. And your side of the silence is where the most interesting question lives. Because it's possible, quietly, honestly possible, that you have known about the watching. Not in explicit terms, not with certainty, but in the way you know things before you allow yourself to know them. In the body, in the instinct, in the way the room changes when their attention is in it. And it's possible this is the part that requires real honesty, that you have been doing something with that knowing. Not nothing, something, a positioning, a slight, perhaps unconscious adjustment of your presence in the vicinity of their attention. Not performance, subtler than performance, more like an awareness, a being more fully yourself in the specific warmth of being watched by someone who watches you the way they do. And if that resonates, if there is something true in that, then you are not simply the object of this story. You are also, in your own quiet way, a participant in it. C'est étrange, mais j'ai l'impression que what you're really navigating tonight is not the question of what they feel. That question, in some form, you already have an answer to. The more honest question, the one that lives underneath, what do you do with the power of being someone's obsession without becoming either diminished by it or consumed by it yourself? Because being the object of that kind of focused, silent, accumulated desire is its own gravitational field. It pulls not because of manipulation, not because of any move they made, but because being wanted genuinely, deeply, in a way that has outlasted strategy, activates something in us that is very old and very honest. And that activation, the pull you feel toward the wanting itself, independent of the person doing the wanting, is worth examining before you move toward anything. Laissez-moi ralentir un instant, because here is the final thing worth carrying. The unplanned move has been made. The silence has cracked. The watching has become something visible. And now, in the space that opens after a move like that, there is a question that belongs entirely to you. Not, do they love me? That question leans outward. That question hands your center of gravity to someone else's answer. The question that belongs to you, the one that keeps your gravity where it belongs. Who do I want to be in the presence of someone who has been watching me long enough to want me before I even knew I was being seen? Not the version of you they constructed in the silence, not the version that performs for the watching, not the version that shrinks or expands in response to their desire. The version that was there before any of this began, the one that moved through rooms without knowing they were being collected, the one whose voice changed when saying something they actually meant, without thinking anyone was listening closely enough to notice. That version, unguarded, unperformed, completely unaware of its own effect, was the one that started all of this. And it is the only version worth bringing forward into the cracked silence, into the unplanned move, into whatever comes next, not as an answer to their desire, but as a presence complete in itself, watched or unwatched, desired or not, moved toward or left in silence, still entirely, irreducibly, you